episode of The Doctor's Corner is brought to you by Therapeutic Transitions. My name is Akila Collier, licensed clinical therapist and Army combat veteran. Oftentimes, we as veterans struggle to connect with clinicians. As a veteran, I have firsthand knowledge and experience on how to help you transition successfully if you are struggling with PTSD, military sexual trauma, depression, or anxiety. Allow me to partner with you, veteran to veteran, to help you reach your mental health goals. I can be reached at 817-914-3251, or you can reach me online at therapeutictransitions.org.
Well, hello, podcast listeners, and welcome. Welcome to the Doctor's Corner. I am your host, Dr. K, and today we have a very special episode for your listening pleasure. But first, let me explain to our first-time listeners a little bit about the Doctor's Corner. Usually, we select various literature compilations from a wide variety of genres and share with you, offering our subjective evaluations, whether it is a 5-star compelling read, a 3-star average read, or a 1-star, a less than compelling read. On the Doctor's Corner, we understand that a quality literature review is not about the author, with the exception of the biopics, memoirs, and biographies, but more so about the content, the writing, the storyline, the navigation of the topics, the characters, the research, and on the facts. On the Doctor's Corner, we hope to augment the reading levels of the U.S. adult population while bringing an awareness to veterans and veteran resources. As you may know, I am a proud United States Navy veteran, and this episode is dedicated to my brothers and sisters in arms. Today, our guest is Charlynn Johns, Program Director for Stop One Suicide. Charlynn Johns is at the Dallas Veteran Resource Center. Today's article is a peer-reviewed piece authored by Amy Kashiwa, Melissa M. Sweetman, and Lorianne Helgeson. The title is Occupational Therapy and Veteran Suicide, a Call to Action. The article was published in the American Journal of Occupational Therapy, 2017. So, Ms. Johns, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, so let's get started with an introduction of yourself and what you do.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I am Charlynn Johns, the Program Director at the Dallas Veteran Resource Center for their Suicide Education and Awareness Program. I have been the Executive Director of a faith-based nonprofit, Sunshine After Rain, since 1996. We focused on orphans, people impacted by trauma and war, and since 2008, we've been working with military and veteran families.
Awesome. And why is veteran suicide prevention important to you?
When I began working with returning military families in 2008, I was really astounded by the issues they encountered in just finding resources. I had no idea the chaos families are thrown into when a warrior is wounded in combat. So in partnership with the families and caregivers we were working with, we created an online directory of resources at Battle Buddy Info to help them navigate the landscape of searching for that assistance. But more importantly, to see the effect that it has on spouses, children, and friends is devastating. And to find out the research that for every suicide, 100 people are intimately impacted. With veteran suicides at over 8,000 a year, that is close to 1 million people that have been affected and impacted directly by veteran suicide.
Wow. So with one suicide, 100 people are impacted.
Yes, ma'am. And probably with veterans, it's even more because everyone in their unit, so many more people are directly associated with veterans and friends and, the tribe, that it really is a catastrophic health crisis going on in the military community.
So what do you think about today's featured article and the report of veteran suicide increasing at a faster rate than civilian suicide?
Well, this was really probably the impetus, and I thoroughly enjoyed reading the article, but you hear the statistics and you just need to know how to act on those statistics. So the article says suicide prevention is a profession-wide responsibility. It's addressed to the medical community, specifically occupational therapists. But I emphatically believe it is a cultural and communal responsibility as well. So the reporting on suicide is getting better. And yet, even the VA realizes that 20.6 that they will claim is not an accurate number. But those are deaths that cannot be ruled any other way. So by that, I mean, there's a note, it's death by firearm, etc. It doesn't include deaths that a medical examiner ruled as a single motor vehicle accident or a fatal medication combinations. And when a veteran dies by suicide, their family's benefits are impacted. So again, that 20.6 is a false number. And the increase, I think, as the reporting statistics and the VA working with medical examiners, unfortunately, that number is going to increase at an astounding rate.
Wow. So 20.6 is, you would say at this particular point in time, as of 2019, that's not an accurate number, but it may actually be more.
Yes. And even the VA recognizes that. That's the number that they have to own as veteran suicides per day. So that's over 8,000 deaths by suicide every year in the veteran population. That's more than has died in combat in 17 years. In 1 year, more died by suicide.
Wow. Kashiwa, Sweetman, and Helgeson contend that risk factors associated with veteran suicide include PTSD, depression, anxiety, substance abuse, feelings of being a burden or lack of belonging during the transition to veteran status, social isolation, and relationship problems. They name relationship issues and sleep disturbances being explicitly associated with suicide risks. So, two-part question for you. Can you explain PTSD to the listeners?
Certainly. I'll give you the non-clinical layman's terms. Post-traumatic stress is a mental health problem that some people develop after experiencing or witnessing a life-threatening event, like combat, a natural disaster, car accident, or sexual assault. If symptoms, sleeplessness, hypervigilance, aggressive behavior, just to name a few, continue to interfere with daily life, then it becomes a disorder.
Okay. So are sleep disturbances and relationship issues explicitly associated with suicide risk more than others?
Well, the article certainly contends that. Now, we're all aware of the importance of a good night's sleep because sleep allows the brain to recharge for rational decision making in daily life.
Sure.
So suicidal ideations develop and begin to develop when a complex individual symptoms start occurring all at the same time. When your mind can't shut down to rest, agitation occurs. And agitation impacts relationships. Relationships impact job performance. And then it's a domino effect with devastating consequences.
It's interesting. When I think of someone committing suicide, is a person limited in their mental capacity because they think suicide is an option, or how does a person come to a point of suicide being an only option?
Well, scientists have begun to research the genetic components of suicidal ideation. There are individuals that no matter what life throws at them, they will never contemplate giving up. And then there are others with a predisposed risk. And does that mean that everyone with those genetic predispositions will die by suicide? No. But it does mean that suicide is far more complex than once thought. And at the time of a suicide attempt, there would definitely be an identified lack in mental capacity. However, that lack can be brought on by alcohol, drugs, or even a traumatic brain injury. And as we discussed, suicide is a very complex issue. And the way to develop understanding is to start the conversation, like reading articles, getting educated, and having the discussion that we're having this evening.
Sure. How can someone detect if a loved one, veteran or not, is at risk of suicide?
Well, too often when you hear of a death by suicide, you'll invariably hear, I knew I knew there something wasn't right. I knew, I just had this feeling. Yet, unfortunately, fear prevents people from starting the conversation. There are very identifiable risk factors as well as warning signs related to suicide. So, the suicide hotline has identified many of these, and I'm happy to share them with you. Knowing the risk factors, it's a lengthy list, but mental disorders, knowing if a person has a mood disorder or anxiety disorder, alcohol and substance abuse disorder, if a person's feeling hopeless, if they're impulsive or aggressive tendencies, if they have a history of trauma or abuse, major physical illnesses, previous suicide attempts, a family history of suicide, a job or financial loss, loss of relationship, easy access to lethal means. And let me stop right there in this list. Lethal means in suicide attempts. And as we talked about earlier, the 20.6, the lethal means veterans die by firearms 79% of the time. So being able to limit their access to lethal means and can absolutely save lives. Now, before anybody gets worried that we're out to take firearms away from the veteran population, because that's a big no. People say, no, they're never going to take my guns. Let me just tell you, the data and scientific research has proven that if you put 10 minutes between suicidal ideation and access to lethal means, you can stop that suicide completion. Now, how would that be accomplished if a person's not willing to give up their gun? That can be accomplished by you talk to that person and have them put all their bullets in a mayonnaise jar, or you have them put a gun lock and put the key in a jar of pickle relish, because the research shows that when you can interrupt that thought process against that access, then you can absolutely save that person's life. And that's what it's all about, stopping that suicide attempt with a fatal 98% of completed suicides by firearms. That's a very high number, as opposed with that's the lethalist means of suicide is by firearms. So the other risk factor that is seldom talked about in the veteran community is the contagion effect. So what that indicates is that when someone whether it's a family member, a friend, or someone in the community, or someone in the high school that you go to, dies by suicide, the risk of you seeing that as a viable option to end whatever pain, physical or mental anguish you're going through, increases exponentially. So there's clusters of suicides that happen. And we've seen it in school districts, but I believe that that's also what is contributing to this very high rate of suicides among the veteran population, is because, I know a veteran that said in public 29 of his friends had died by suicide. I don't even, I can't even name 29 people that have died by suicide, much less 29 friends that I knew very closely. So that risk factor in those veterans, every time they hear another friend has made that choice, it becomes that much more acceptable. Let me just throw this last risk factor in is
Sure.
Another risk factor, particularly in the veteran community, that the occupational therapy community is looking at, is that the stigma in asking for help, in asking for mental health. So it goes against the military culture to say, I've got a problem. It's like, no, you don't have a problem. Suck it up and move on. You've got something to do. Get it done. And so that stigma is exceptionally high in the military community. Mental health and mental illness is a big stigma in the public community, but even more so in the military and veteran community.
Sure. To this very day, if I feel like I have an issue, I do lots of isolation, and I know that's probably not good.
No, it's not good at all. And the best thing you can do is get out and get around people, because when you're left alone with your thoughts, it's when you can just start going down a very deep, very dark mental place. And
Sure.
fortunately, now with social media,
Hmm.
aside from the bad part of social media, the good part of social media is there are lots of helplines and chat rooms and availability of people that are there watching and paying attention all the time to see that you're going to be okay. And it can be anonymous, it can be, there's so many ways that you can connect without feeling like you've exposed yourself.
Sure.
So, another one of the great things that we talk about and promote in our programs when we're doing trainings is there's an app. There's lots of apps out there, but we really like this one. It's called Not Okay. And it was
Hmm.
developed by a 16-year-old kid because his sister had made a suicide attempt. What it
Mm.
does is you put 5 friends in. It sends them a text that says, "Hey, Dr. K has listed you as a friend that she can call on. If she's not okay, will you accept?" And then your friend accepts or not. So you have 5 people in there. If you're feeling in that deep, dark place, all you have to do is hit that button that says, "I'm not okay." It's going to send those 5 people a text that says, "Dr. K is not okay." And one of those people can respond to you immediately, and it gives your GPS location. So you don't have to think about, "Oh, do I really want to call Charlynn? No, Charlynn's probably busy. She said she was going out to dinner. Oh, no, I can't call. I can't call this person because no, they've got kids and it might wake them up." It does that automatically where you don't have to think about that at all. You can say, "I'm not okay." And as soon as one of those people responds, or more than one people, it lets the other people know, "Hey, Charlynn's responded to Dr. K."
And
And
a
then
16-year-old made this app?
absolutely. And
Amazing.
when you're okay, after we've had our conversation, you just hit, "I'm okay now." And then it sends that message out to those 5 people. "Hey, she's okay now. You don't have to worry." So that's good for the elderly. I mean, they don't have to think about it. Who am I going to call? They can hit that. "I'm not okay. I've fallen down, but I don't want to call 911 and get the police or an ambulance here.
Mhm.
I just need some little help." So
Right.
it's really a brilliant solution to a very significant problem.
It is. I like it. And I am going to download that app. That's awesome and very good information. I have a few follow up questions because you provided a wealth of good information. You referenced the suicide hotline number. Do you have that number and can share with the listeners?
Absolutely. And I would say for your listeners, get out your phone immediately and put this in your contacts. The crisis line number is 800-273-8255. And veterans, press 1.
Got it. Another follow up question. You referenced that to limit access to lethal means for vets, all you need is about a 10-minute gap.
Mm-hmm.
Would this effort be successful with someone that's influenced by alcohol or drugs, whether it's prescription or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, let me just say, if
Mhm.
let's say you're on the phone with your friend and you say, "Are you thinking about suicide?" And they say, "Yeah, man, this is it. I'm ending it." Immediately say, "Do you have access to lethal means?" And if, and most is, especially if they're under the influence, they would say, "Yeah, I got my 45," or call 911. And people will say, "Oh, I don't want to call the police because, they'll get mad at me." I'm like, "Hey, they can be alive to forgive you.
Sure.
Call 911." And anyone that is concerned, if you've seen a friend that day and you're concerned, but you didn't say anything to the friend, and now they're not answering the phone. You can call the hotline and you can say, hey, I'm worried about my friend. What do I do? They'll say, let's try to get them on the line. If they can't get them on the line, they'll recommend you call and do a welfare check. Don't hesitate, because hesitating is when lives are lost.
Right.
And you don't want to have that regret. So they get mad at you. So they get, they're all upset because you call the police. You were scared. Just say, I love you and care about you enough for you to hate me, as temporarily as that might be.
Mm-hmm. Tell me, how and in what form does Stop One offer intervention?
Stop One is a collaborative impact organization. So by that, I mean, we're not the experts, but we gather all the experts together. We offer the community training in suicide education and prevention at no cost. There's a variety of courses that you can take in person at the Veteran Resource Center or even online. Mm-hmm. Our goal is to equip through education and empower people into action. We want to see the narrative shift from the overwhelming statistic to the empowered, hey, I can stop one.
Okay, so what exactly should a person do if they're contemplating suicide, or how can a family member help?
If a person is contemplating suicide, call the national hotline, 800-273-8255. Veterans, press 1. If a family member or friend feels there's imminent danger of a person dying by suicide, as I said, call 911. Do not hesitate. The feedback is, oh yeah, my friend will get mad. My response is, they'll be alive and they'll be able to forgive you. Learn the risk factors and the warning signs. Go to our website and see just how simple it is. The site is designed to tell you up front, do you have 1 minute to learn about suicide? Do you have 10 minutes? And then it'll take you to a video or an article to read about the risk factors and the warning signs. Do you have a day? It'll tell you where you can attend an 8-hour course. Do you have 2 hours? It'll show you online training courses that are available that you can equip yourself to know what to do if you're faced with that kind of crisis. But most important is start the conversation. Sure. Ask how a person is doing. Even a complete stranger can make a difference.
Very nice. You referenced your website address. Can you share that with the listeners now?
Yes, it's www.stop1, and that's spelled out, .info. Stop1.info.
Okay. Many organizations offer some sort of wellness program or employee assistance program, EAPs. Do you think suicide prevention strategies should differ between military and non-military, or does it matter?
I believe organizations should offer programs for all health equally, physical as well as mental. And some states are mandating that insurance cover them equally instead of putting a cap on how many times you can visit a mental health professional. Mm-hmm. And while our platform is veterans, education is education. So I really don't think it matters. What matters is your willingness to start the conversation.
Sure. Veterans, we must overcome the stigma of thinking that reaching out for help is bad or it's weak or an admission of failure. The alternative to life is not an option prematurely. So, Ms. Johns, can you share any final thoughts regarding suicide prevention, education, and anything else that you would like to share about Stop One?
Absolutely. Just to wrap it up, I would really say get involved. Be aware. Veterans are hypervigilant anyway. They're aware of where the exits are, where the entrances are, who's coming in, how many people are in the room, where the windows are. Be aware of the people. Put your phone down, look around. And this goes to everyone. Make positive, real connections with people around you. Tell someone they have nice shoes or hair, or just offer a smile. Say, hey, my name's Charlynn. What's your name? You can be the one to stop one.
So, Charlynn, can you tell them how to contact you if they want to reach out for information or to get more familiar with Stop One?
Yes, first you can go to the website www.stop1.info. They can also call our office at the Veteran Resource Center, area code 214-372-8896, or they can send an email to stop1vet, and that's one spelled out, at gmail.com. And they can come and visit us at the Dallas Veteran Resource Center, take a class, learn how to know the warning signs, learn the risk factors, and at the very least, go online and be educated, and that is power.
Is Stop One nationwide?
Stop One offers, yes, Stop One is a national initiative. We're starting out in Dallas, but all of our information is national information.
Very nice. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Johns, for participating with me today on the Doctor's Corner in a review of occupational therapy and veteran suicide, a call to action.
Thank you.
In closing, I found the featured article, Occupational Therapy and Veteran Suicide, a Call to Action, written by Kashiwa, Sweetman, and Helgeson, very intriguing, informative, and well prepared with scholarly rigor. Although the stats therein were staggering, Charlynn Johns indicated since the article's publication date, veteran suicides have increased. According to Ms. Johns, it is not only the responsibility of occupational therapists, but the responsibility of both cultures and communities alike to be well informed of the uptick in this suicide phenomena. I found Kashiwa, Sweetman, and Helgeson cited reliable sources and demonstrated exceptional efforts in triangulating their data to achieve data saturation and overall trustworthiness of their findings during the period in which the article was published. According to Kashiwa, Sweetman, and Helgeson, the prevalence of suicide between 2001 and 2014 indicated veteran suicide rates increased by 32%. Whereas suicide rates among civilian adults increased by 23%. In my opinion, the featured article and this call to action and awareness is a very necessary start. As Ms. Johns, I too enjoyed the article and found it to be a compelling read with 4 stars. Although more current data may be available, the article was well written and placed appropriate emphasis and urgency on the issue. This episode of the Doctor's Corner has been brought to you by Army combat veteran Akila Collier and Therapeutic Transitions.